Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Turns out we're now in the home stretch of 2024 with 2 months to go. So strap yourselves in. We have a couple of animated films to go, some I'm curious about, and others I'm dreading. But hey, it can't be worse than the last film I saw, which involved kids making a diss track towards an airline for losing their pets. Ugh, I still cannot believe this is a real thing. Anyway, enough of that madness. I want to ask, how'd you guys spend your Halloween? I'm sure you all had fun, right? The candy, the costumes, the cool air, the good scary movies to watch. There's numerous fun ways to spend that holiday. As for me, I watched Hitpig. Yeah, not exactly the best way I would celebrate the holiday. And yeah, I know you're looking at this and are probably wondering what in the world this is. And honestly, I'm not sure myself. It's a movie, alright. Not a very good one, which we'll get to in a bit, but, you know, a movie. And not exactly one I was anxious to see. I mean, it didn't look great, but it looked better than Gracie and Pedro. But there were things about this that didn't excite me, and I'll break them down beat by beat, cause yeah, I think that'll be the best way to decode this strange film. For one, it's a film distributed by Viva Kids, this strange distribution company that picks up a lot of odd animated films. Now, I covered 2 of their films last year, which were the amazingly mediocre The Amazing Maurice, as well as Vanguard Animation's appalling Rally Road Racers. So, that was strike 1. 2, it was based on a book by Berkeley Breathed, who is a talented writer and cartoonist, but whose work haven't really translated well to the big screen. If you need proof, one of those books that got a really horrendous adaptation was Mars Needs Moms, which I would consider one of the worst animated films of the 2010s. So, that was strike 2. And as for strike 3, it was the fact that it was coming from the studio Anaventure, whose previous big animated film was Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank, the very troubled animated film that spent years in development hell and tried to be a kid-friendly version of the Mel Brooks comedy Blazing Saddles, but with samurais instead of cowboys. Unsurprisingly, it failed quite miserably because I don't understand why anyone would want a kid-friendly version of Blazing Saddles. So yeah, we got ourselves a real strange little movie here that I just didn't know what to do with. And I didn't exactly know how to feel about it going into it, and having seen it, yeah, it's not very good. Hitpig is a really bad movie. You probably expected that based on all I've said, and maybe the trailer if you saw it, and yeah, I can confirm this is really awful. And the sad thing is, I could have seen this working. This is one of those animated films that, if done right, could have been a fun and good time. However, what we did get was a badly executed and overdone animated film that ended up being way too much for its own good, and just kind of a slog to get through. In a cyberpunk future, a bounty hunter named Hitpig, played by Jason Sudeikis, has been capturing animals and returning them to their owners, and has been raking up the big bucks for years. Things seem to be going well until one day an animal liberator named Leticia, played by Anita, hacks into his bank account and steals his money hoping to teach him a lesson. Desperate for cash, he soon gets his chance when a Las Vegas showman called the Leapin' Lord of the Leotard, played by Rainn Wilson, phones Hitpig and asks him to bring back his elephant Pickles, played by Lily Singh, in return for a $1 million reward after being stolen by Leticia. Hitpig soon finds Pickles in London, who is desperate to escape her cruel owner and life in the circus and return to her home in India, and Hitpig must make the call on whether to take Pickles back to Vegas or home to India. Okay, so how do I talk about this film? Okay, so I've been doing this job for a while now, and having watched numerous films over the years, I made the discovery that there are 2 types of bad animated films. The first is the kind that has no potential whatsoever. A film that was a really awful idea, had no chance of working out, and just seemed like a train wreck waiting to happen. And then there's the kind of film that had promise and good potential to work out and become another classic, but really got lost in production and was heavily brought down by the bad execution. In my opinion, this film falls into the second category, because I won't lie, there was something in here that I didn't hate. The story is silly, yes, but the idea of a bounty hunter pig trying to rescue an elephant and debate on changing his moral and setting her free, or keeping to his word and taking the money, is not an inherently awful idea for an animated film. I think the story could have been fun. The problem mainly comes with the execution, cause boy, is this film badly told. This is yet another animated film this year that really suffers from some horrendous pacing issues, and this one really feels like it's out of control. It's like the film gulped down an entire jar of sugar and started going on a sugar rush, crazily rushing out its story, cause it doesn't feel like it allows us to process what happens and just moves on like if we're being rushed through a museum. And if you need proof, let me break down to you how the film opens. It opens up on Hitpig's backstory with his mentor Bertha, then it goes to him in the Arctic capturing a radioactive polecat played by RuPaul who farts nuclear explosions. I'll get to the humor in a bit. Then it cuts to Pickles and her horrible life in the circus, then back to Hitpig who captures a koala in Australia played by Hannah Gadsby, then back to Pickles still in her horrible circus life, then to Leticia stealing Hitpig's money, then Pickles is stolen by her, and then Hitpig gets the call. And did I mention this all happens in less than 10 minutes? Yeah, the film is like this. It thinks it needs to be hyperactive and go by so quickly to keep the audience's attention, but all it does is showcase the poor storytelling that much more. It's horrendously over the top, and in my opinion, too over the top for its own good. And don't get me wrong, I love animation that's over the top and silly. I love Tex Avery, I love Rocko's Modern Life, and I think the first 3 Madagascar and first 3 Hotel Transylvania films are tons of goofy fun and the right kind of silly. But there is such a thing of pushing it over the line. If you crank your goofiness past 11, it can get pretty unbearable after a while, and this was way too much. This film doesn't know how to reel it in. It really thinks it needs to be energetic to keep people's attention, but all it seriously does is highlight the poor filmmaking that much more. And if anything, it really damages the characters as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The film was co-directed by David Feiss, and he's known for goofy and over-the-top animated stuff that I've liked, but he really went too far with this. It really needed to be toned down. It also doesn't help that the film is not that funny. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a comedy black hole and gets to unbearable stupid levels like Gracie and Pedro or Saving Bikini Bottom, because it did get a couple of chuckles out of me, but most of the comedy is really lame and made me roll my eyes. I mean, you have lines like this.
And that is why Taylor Swift would be a great president.
Okay, 1, no she wouldn't. And 2, what does that have to do with anything? Like, yeah, I know Taylor Swift is a gigantic superstar, I'm not living under a rock, but what's so funny about this line? Because she's huge? Ugh, it's so lame. And speaking of lame, I need to talk about the needle drops, because there are a lot of them, and all of them are so lousy. The film goes for the most obvious, basic, lowest common denominator songs they could have chosen for certain scenes. When we first see Hitpig in his bounty hunting past, they play Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. When we see him in Australia trying to catch the koala, they play Down Under by Men at Work. When there's a scene involving exotic dancers in London with Pickles, they play Conga by Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine. When they're dancing on hot air balloons in the clouds, Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves. When a lobster shows up, they go with Rock Lobster by the B-52s. And a big dance number at Pickles Circus, they play Dancing with Myself by Billy Idol. Can you be more obvious than this? Like, I'm sorry, these choices are so lame and basic. There are plenty of other songs you could have chosen besides these. Like, it's not even that hard to do a needle drop well in an animated film. I mean, look at Robot Dreams. That film used September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that might seem like such an obvious choice, but it works because the filmmakers understood a deeper purpose with that song and used it to great effect. That's how you should be using a needle drop in a film. Not because it's the obvious soundtrack choice. This film uses these songs and it's so obvious and basic. It's really lame. Now, as far as the animation goes, it's kind of a mixed bag. I do like the designs of the animals. You can see Berkeley Breffid's style come through with them here, and I think they're well animated. But the humans are... They're not awful, but I've seen better. Though, what really stood out to me was the sets, cause that was lame. I read that this film was supposed to be set in a, quote, future cyberpunk world, but there is nothing futuristic or cyberpunk about this. This has to be the dullest looking cyberpunk film I've ever seen. The technology feels modern, it's super clean, and it feels lifeless. Cyberpunk is supposed to be dirty, grimy, crawling with broken technology, people wearing outfits that are dystopian. This looks like a film that is set in the present. There's nothing futuristic about this. And then there's the characters, and I do think there was potential for them, but much like the story, they were executed very poorly. Hitpig is kind of a murky protagonist and doesn't have a lot of personality. It's not really clear why he's doing this job, nor is it clear what his motives or dreams are. I guess the film tries to give him this dream that he wants to be a chef, but it's really not well defined. All we see for his passion is him cooking an omelet and watching some cooking show. It doesn't seem like he's miserable doing his current job and wanting to be a chef instead. It also doesn't help that Jason Sudeikis seemed really miscast as him. He's a funny guy and a great actor, but he was not right for this role. And I know he wasn't the right fit because he was not the original choice. They initially cast Peter Dinklage, and for reasons that are unknown, he backed out, and after reading that, yeah, that makes perfect sense. This is a character I could see being voiced by Dinklage, not Sudeikis. He was completely wrong for Hitpig. Plus, Hitpig's rivalry with Leticia also doesn't make a lot of sense. She steals his money, but it's not really clear why. And you'd think with the many times the duo crosses paths in the film, Hitpig would bring up the fact that she stole his money, but that never happens. It's all about pickles. And I guess we should talk about her, and... oh boy, she was really annoying. They try to make her likable and silly for a way to make Hitpig lighten up, but they made her really annoying. This character is just too much to bear as she constantly gets into trouble and is really stupid, and I didn't understand how Hitpig was supposed to bond with her. It also doesn't help that she's extremely underdeveloped as well. I don't know anything about her apart from that she wants to leave the circus and go back to India. Like, who is she? What is she like? What are her favorite things? I don't know. And the film isn't gonna tell ya. Like, if we're gonna be stuck together with this duo, we have to know more about them, and at the end of the day, I knew less about Hitpig and Pickles by the end than I did at the beginning. And I guess there's also a villain, but calling him a villain seems too generous. This evil circus owner doesn't really do anything. He just screams most of the time, and his big evil scheme is really just kind of lousy. And by the end, it becomes dangerous and reckless, but it's not menacing. He just wants his elephant to put on a show. What will he do with her if she messes up? Yell at her, I guess? Again, I don't know. The story is so badly told that these characters don't leave any impression on me. Like, that's the problem with this film. It's not because it's stupid, or it looks boring, or even that it has stupid lines about Taylor Swift being president. It's that the story is not well told. It's rushed. It's underdeveloped. It's way too over the top. It's just not a well-made film. And it just makes me sad, because there is something good trying to get out of this. This could have been a really silly and funny film, but I don't think it was made or told by the right people. One other thing I forgot to point out in the opening was that this story was initially one DreamWorks was attempting to make back in the 2010s. And honestly, I think this would have worked much better if it came from them. Like, give this to a director like Tom McGrath, and I think this could have been a lot of fun. Really goofy and silly energy, decent visuals, and even a sweet message about following your dreams and sticking to your morals. This could have had potential. But that's not what we got. Instead, Hitpig ended up being a disappointment. This was not a well-made film. Well, it had potential with its silly story, and the animal animation and character designs were good. The story is way too rushed, not funny, and over the top for its own good. The animated sets were incredibly boring, and the characters were really underdeveloped and sometimes annoying, and it's also just exceptionally lame. Because of that, I really can't recommend this. It's just a sad film to watch because the people who made it really didn't do what they had to work with justice. It's really unimpressive overall. I really feel bad for giving it this, but I have to be honest. I think I have to give Hitpig a 3. I don't feel proud giving it this grade, but I can't give it anything higher than that. It's just a really badly made film. This film really should have been a fun time. There was potential for some silliness and good laughs here, and I think this would have fit nicely with films like Madagascar or Hotel Transylvania. But this was not that. Instead, what we got was a film whose bacon was sadly incredibly burnt.
It's to my nephew.
Yeah, what's his name?
His name, Hitpig.